So welcome to the Crossroads Gentle Mindful Yoga class. And we're going to start in a seated position with some support under your bum if you need a pillow to kind of lift the pelvis up a little bit. And some people need support under their knees, depending on hips and leg length and all sorts of things. So come into a cross-legged seated position. And then let your hands come onto your knees or on your thighs or down in your groin, whatever feels comfortable for you. Palms can be up or down. And then as you come into this seated position, invite your eyes to close or look down softly at the ground. And slowly begin to drop into your center, into your heart and your belly. Begin to breathe a little bit more deeply, expanding your belly, your ribs, and up to the top of your lungs. And as you deepen your breath, notice a little bit more what your emotions and your thoughts and any body sensations. And as always in yoga, if at any point your body becomes uncomfortable or your emotions become too intense or your thoughts become intense, open your eyes and shift your position and do what you need in order to come into this, coming back into listening to my voice when you're ready, without judgment. Now, as you breathe, feel your toes and your feet, your legs, and feel your sits bones, your bum on the ground, and then lift yourself up out of the pelvic bowl. Feel your whole torso lift up, and let the shoulders fall back and let them fall down just a little bit. Bring the chin back towards the body and lengthen up through the spine. Notice if that affects your breathing. Today, our focus is going to be on loving kindness to ourselves first and to others. Kristen Neff, who's a compassion guru of the highest order, she says that when loving kindness meets suffering, that's when we land with compassion. Loving kindness meeting suffering, that's when we land with compassion. And feel for you, the lockdown, COVID, some of the chaos to the south of us that is occurring, anything else personal for you and your family, any suffering that you're experiencing. And allow that to be wrapped in loving kindness. And today I'm going to invite you to hold that loving kindness for yourself. And on the next in-breath, bring your hands over beside your hips with the fingertips on the ground. Let the shoulder blades slide down the back. Bring the chin back against the body, so tucking it in. And then turn the palms up to the sky. And then inhale, bringing hands up toward the sky. And then exhaling, back of palms, back of hands come against each other and reaching down, letting the whole breath as you exhale. And then inhale without rushing or pushing, allowing yourself to be here. And then exhaling as you're ready. Move as slowly as feels right for you. And then the next moment or so, let your own breath be your guide in sun breath. And the next time you bring your hands up to the top, pause here, clasping the fingers, letting the index and thumb pointing up. This is a mudra, which is a shape of hands. Can't remember which one. And then reaching up even higher, tuck the chin a little bit more, and then reaching up higher. And then exhale, letting the left hand come to the floor, and then walking that outward. And let the right hand just fall across the ear, and then press down with the opposite hip, reaching fingertips. And then maybe adding, if neck allows, looking up at the sky. And one more breath here. And then inhale, coming back up with arms straight out, parallel to the earth. Reaching out with fingertips, tucking neck, letting shoulder blades come together. Inhale. And then exhale, opposite hand drops down and opposite arm lines across the ear. Pressing down with the opposite hip and looking up at sky if neck allows. One more breath. And then back to center with arms still reaching out parallel to earth. And then inhale, right hand comes to left knee, back hand braces on the floor, and then turn and look over the shoulder softly. And then exhale back to center, arms reaching out. Inhale, opposite side. Exhale. Inhale back to center. Exhale, opposite side. Inhale back to center. Exhale, opposite side. And then follow the flow for the next moment or so, side to side. One more each side. And then back to center. And pausing for a moment once more with eyes closed and noticing. And then releasing the legs, any movement. And we're going to move into a deer pose, which some of you may be familiar with. So to start with, your left leg comes across. So you're kind of aiming to have the left thigh come straight out of that hip, so a right angle here. And then the opposite leg, you kind of put the knee in the curve of the foot and the other leg goes back. So you're kind of aiming for a right angle-ish, depending on knees and leg length and all kinds of things. So don't get too perfectionist, although I tend to like the technique, but you know, if the legs out a little bit, so you want to tune into the knees and the hips. And if there's any stress on this knee that's bent out. So this is called deer pose. And so what we're going to do, whatever knee, this is your left leg out here, and you're going to bring your opposite hand here to the outside of the thigh, and then bring this hand to the ground, and then stable. And then we're going to do a twist here. And then come back to center. And then you can either do another twist like that, or you can join me in coming down onto your forearm if your body allows, and beginning to move the body, keeping the lower body stable. You're beginning using the forearms, turning the body into a twist, using this forearm as your base. And one more breath here. And then coming back to center. And then releasing the legs with the feet flat on the ground and the knees bent. And then holding beneath the knees and lengthening through the spine. And then raising legs up with feet, soles of feet pointing away. You can stay here, or you can bring hands down beside the calves. Letting the breath be soft if you can. One more breath, and then releasing. And then shifting to opposite leg. That whatever leg you used the other time. So you're starting with feel the hip on the opposite leg coming straight out of the socket, and then the leg goes straight across at right angle, and then the opposite leg tucks up to the heel or in the ball of the foot, and you're aiming to come straight back. And it's mostly the hip with the leg straight out that's landing on the ground. And then to start with, we're going to bring the opposite arm to the thigh and bring that hand, and then do a spinal twist here, looking over the shoulder. Inhaling. And then releasing back to center. And then you can either do that twist again, or you can join me by coming down on the forearm. And then let the forearm be your foundation as you turn and twist, bringing the head as well if head allows, if neck allows, and looking over past the forearm. One more breath. And then slowly coming back to seated. Once again, releasing the legs. Bringing the feet to standing with the knees toward the ceiling and clasping underneath the knees. Lengthen through the spine. You can stay here, or you can raise the feet, keeping hands under the knees or thighs, or you can bring the hands down beside the calves. One more breath, and then releasing. And then begin to shift into your tabletop. So you're going to move on to your knees and your hands, bringing your hands right under your shoulders. If you've got wrist tenderness, you can come on your fists, or you can move your hands forward a little bit, finding what works best for you. You want the knees lined up with the hips, and the knees are hip distance apart. And looking down between the hands, have a sense of flattening the back, tucking the chin. And then as you're ready, begin by dropping the lower back and letting it ripple up the spine as you look up at the sky, inhaling. And then exhale, tuck the lower spine and bring the chin to the chest. And then follow your cat-cow over the next little bit. Breathing in as you look up, exhaling in cat. And then one more each way. And then coming back to your flat tabletop. So hands are down with eyes looking in between the hands. And then bring the right knee in slightly towards the center and the back leg comes up. Notice if you've twisted your hips in any way and flatten them out. So you have a sense of the leg going straight back. Flex the leg. And then lift the opposite arm straight out. And then releasing back to earth. And then the opposite knee comes in slightly towards the center and the opposite leg comes straight back, flattening, squaring through the hips, flexing the foot, and then lifting the opposite arm. And then releasing. We'll do two more each side. As always in yoga, if any of the asanas or poses don't fit for you, you can move into child's pose or shavasana or anything that suits your body. Shifting to opposite leg. And then last one on the opposite side. And then last one. And then releasing. We're going to shift into a wide angle child's pose. So keeping your toes together, widening the knees apart, bringing the bum, the sits bones back to the heels, and then walking the hands forward, bringing your forehead to the earth. If you need any support, you can use your fists here. You can put a pillow under your forehead. And then walk the hands to the right, bringing the forehead back, and then inching that left hand forward as far as feels right for you. One more breath here, and then coming back through center, going to the opposite side, the left side. And then one more breath, and coming back to center, and then coming back up to your table position. So we're going to move into a standing pose here. And some people might prefer to just stand on the ground, and some people might like to go through downward dog. So whether your choice is to just stand upright, or you can move hands forward and then move the legs up so you're in downward dog. You can pause here for a moment. And then walking the feet or coming into your standing. And then slowly taking a breath or two, come up into a standing position. Stay at the front of your mat. I'm going to move here so you can see me. We're going to move into Tadasana. Some of you are familiar, a couple of you are new. So I'm going to describe Tadasana or mountain pose. Again, for those of you that are familiar, please feel free to just move into it. So your feet are right under your hips. You have a sense of being aligned here. And lift your toes off the ground and feel the four corners of your feet solid. And then gently drop the toes. And then have a sense of, in your mind's eye, maybe close your eyes if that feels right. Feel the ankles and build up through the bones and the shins and the calves. And then let the knees be a little soft and the big femurs and the thighs solid up to the hips. And then maybe do a little cat-cow here and come into neutral. And then have a sense of the torso lifting up out of the bowl of the pelvis, and the shoulders roll up and back. And chin comes back slightly tucked. Arms are lightly engaged at the side. And eyes are closed if that feels comfortable. Tadasana or mountain pose. Allow your loving kindness to meet your suffering and feel it wrapped in compassion. Whether it's the suffering of our family, our friends, our neighbors, particularly to the south, lots of people in this world. We have our first two people in the hospital here in Kingston with COVID. And then inhale, reaching hands up overhead. And then exhale, releasing hands. And release, bending your knees, release yourself into forward fold. Coming down as far as body allows. And maybe clasping the elbows. One breath here, big full breath. And then inhale, slowly rising back up, hand coming overhead. And then exhale, folding forward. Clasping elbows. And then inhale, rising up, hand coming overhead. And then on this one, we're going to fold forward and hold for a little bit longer. You can choose to clasp elbows. You can clasp your shins or calves. You can bring your hands to the back of your head. One more breath here. And then slowly coming back to standing. And pausing in your Tadasana. Eyes closed. Come into stillness. And then widen, come sideways on the mat so you're facing the long length of your mat. And then widen your legs. So some people kind of have the image of one of your leg lengths lying in between your feet. That's a bit dismembering, but the idea is that you're about that distance. And then you're going to make the feet straight. So sometimes we have a tendency to turn the feet out in this position. So consciously straighten them and then soften through the knees a little bit. We're going to do a wide angled twist here. So bringing the palms out, the arms out, so they're parallel to the earth. And then bring the left hand down to the right thigh. So all you're doing at this point is crossing your hand down to your thigh, keeping the knees a little bit soft. You're going to move this hand down toward the ankle. Your spot might be here. This might be where you land. So what you're going to do is begin to move forward and find what fits in terms of opening for you, whether that's the thigh, the knee, the shin, the ankle, or the foot. And then raise the top arm so it goes up and look up wherever you are without judgment. One more breath. And then sliding that hand back up the leg, giving yourself some support as you come back into wide angled. And just notice one side as we move into the other, raising arms back up. And then right hand comes to left leg. And then slowly keeping these soft, bringing the nose down toward the knee, pausing wherever is your spot to pause. Bringing that back arm up. One more breath. And then using that right arm, slide back up the leg. Coming back up to standing, releasing the arms. Clasp the hands behind the back. Keeping your legs wide. I'm going to show you. I'll turn around so you can see what I mean. So the palms are together. And then reach the knuckles towards the earth. Avoid the tendency to tilt back and see if the spine will stay straight. We often might go into cow here. Instead, aim to keep that straight, so knuckles reaching down. And then you're going to fold forward, keeping chin tucked. And when you've hit your spot, so just keeping chin tucked, looking down at the earth, beginning to fold forward, and then pausing where it feels right for you. And then if you wish, you can raise your hands off your lower back, just a little bit at a time, maybe opening the palms so they're not touching. Try it with the palms open and the palms closed. And then raise them up as you lower the torso, any amount that fits for you. And then dropping the hands back down, slowly coming back to standing. Releasing the hands. Bringing the heels in with the toes out. Bringing the arms up, 5-pointed star. Fingertips are reaching while shoulder blades are nestled against each other. Then bring the palms towards the ears. The upper arms stay parallel, but the hands come straight up. And then finding, I'm going to move into goddess, so lowering your pelvis towards the floor, bending the knees, keeping chin tucked. There's a central channel called the Sushumna down through the spine, right down to the base of the perineum that holds the chakras in the yoga world. And kind of imagine that opening. You can tuck in your pelvis a little bit here. And then inhale back to 5-pointed star, legs straighten, arms straighten. Exhale, moving down into goddess. Inhale, 5-pointed star. Maybe 5-pointed star calls you to stay in a holding, or maybe you like the rhythm of moving back and forth between goddess and 5-pointed star for the next moment or so. Tuning into your breath. And then last one. And then releasing the arms and releasing the legs, heel toeing them back to center. And maybe you want to shake your legs or arms out a little bit. We're going to do 2 more in the standing part, standing series. We're going to move into Virabhadrasana 2 or warrior, spiritual warrior. So bringing your feet hip distance, well, no, leg distance apart. And then take the left foot and put it out so it's right angled. And bring the back foot in slightly. So finding, so the heel on the front foot is aligned with the instep of the back foot. The hips are still facing the long side of the mat. And just kind of drop down with the knee over the ankle. And just kind of look down. You want it straight up and down and then straighten up again. And come into that knee over ankle once more. Kind of solidly feel your feet planting. Make sure there's no knees, straighten the front leg again. If there's any knee issues, if that feels kind of tender or anything, you can keep the leg a little bit straighter. And then kind of feel yourself planted. Your lower body is solid here. And then invite the legs to rise. No, these are the arms. Invite the arms to rise up. And then turn and look over the front arm. And once again, imagine the Sushumna, the central channel, from the tip of your head down through the perineum, opening wide with compassion. when suffering meets loving kindness. And imagine for yourself something that you have had with suffering in your life right now at present. Something moderate or mild rather than the most extreme, but just kind of imagine something that you're struggling with and wrap that up in loving kindness. And then straightening that front leg and then bending it once more. And straightening the front leg and dropping the arms and turning the feet back to center. And just pause for a moment and notice that side of the body. And then turning opposite side. Right leg out at right angles and then adjusting the back foot. Lining up the heel with the instep and then bringing that knee over the ankle. Kind of feeling yourself solid on the four corners of both feet and straightening up. Kind of moving towards a comfortable, solid foundation. And then when you're ready, dropping into this moment and raising the arms and looking out over the front arm. Some of us have a tendency to lean into, I tend to rush into things and I'm pulling myself back, but some of us stay back, so we need to lean in. So kind of finding, is that true for you in this physical asana? And then release the front knee. And bring that foot back ahead so both feet are straight ahead. And then heel toe back into center. And then maybe once again wiggling the legs and the arms. And then come back so that feet are hip distance apart. Feet are straight ahead. And once again, imagine your legs solid with the knees slightly bent and lifting out of the torso. And then inhale, left hand comes up and lean towards the opposite side. Press down with that left foot. And then exhale, opposite side. And then just let yourself be in the flow of your body around this. And then one more each side. And then coming back to stillness. So I'm going to offer you several choices to come down onto our bellies. And one choice is to come down through plank, either on hands or on your forearm. Or you can just gently move down, whatever fits for your body today. So we're going to land on our bellies on the mat. And you can do that either through downward dog and a plank. If you're in the plank and find it too intense, you can also drop the knees. Eventually, we're all going to join together in coming down, perhaps with our arms up and turned onto one of our cheeks or on the forehead. And allowing the entire body to drop into this moment, softening, letting gravity hold you. And now bringing hands under shoulders, we're going to prepare for cobra in a minute. Bringing the forehead to the earth and then kind of wiggle the hips back. So you're creating some space in the lower back and then press the feet into the ground and the thighs. And then imagine from your pubic bone up to your hips, there's a triangle there. And you're going to press into that while you're also curving slightly into a cat in your lower back. The elbows come in close to the ribs. The forehead is on the earth. And then you're going to rise up without putting any pressure on your hands. And then exhale, forehead back to earth. Inhale, rising up. Exhale, forehead back to earth. And then one more, rising up. Once again, no pressure on the hands. And then back to earth. And we are going to hold, you're going to rise up and bring the elbows forward. So the elbows are under the shoulders or slightly ahead. And the hands are flat. This is Sphinx. So once again, feeling the feet and the thighs pressed down. And then imagine yourself pressing up and then feeling the pull from the upper body away from the lower body. So you're pulling forward and up. And then inhale. And then resting, head down. We're going to do one more hold here, and you're going to choose. Perhaps the hold is with no weight on the hands. Perhaps your hold is in Sphinx, which we just did. Or you might prefer to do a full cobra. So rise up. If you're doing a full cobra, you want to keep that triangle on the ground, the elbows in close, the feet pressed down, and then pulling forward long out of the back. One more breath. And whether you're in cobra or Sphinx or baby cobra, coming back to the earth. And then bring the hands down beside the hips, the forehead on the earth, and just notice. And then turn the palms down and bring them a little bit out from the hips. And once again, pressing that triangle down in the thighs. Widen the feet to the edges of the mat. Press down with the feet. And then to start with, raising the torso only, inhale. And exhale, forehead back down. If there's any intensity in the lower back, you might prefer to sit this out or to move into child's pose. But if this feels right for you, you're going to raise the torso again, and then the arms, and then the legs. And then exhale, come back all down to the earth. And then maybe you're going to rise again, bringing legs, arms, and torso up high. And then perhaps holding, or maybe moving in and out, or maybe staying on the ground. One more breath here. And then releasing, you're going to move up into child's pose. I'm going to suggest, if you're willing, to bring the knees and toes together. Bring the sits bone back and the hands down beside the ankles and the forehead to the earth. One more breath here. And then slowly coming up to seated. Perhaps you can sit on your shins, like on your knees. And if you can, kind of rising up to be on your knees. And then tucking your toes under. I've forgotten about this one. I'm going to do it with you, and you can choose whatever fits for you. I find this a pretty intense, but not everyone does. So tucking the toes under on your knees, you can always bring a pillow or something under your knees if that feels better. Bring hands to hips, so toes are tucked under. And then you're going to begin to move back, putting some weight to the toes. Perhaps sitting down if body allows. This is where I start to feel, I think agony would be the right word. So you're opening up the soles of your feet. And then I can't, but some of you might be able to bring your body straight up. One more breath. Yikes. And then releasing, coming down with your legs straight before you. So some people like to kind of pull the fleshy parts out from the sits bones. Some people could care less about that. But what it does for me a little bit, it kind of grounds me. So these bones, some of you might not be familiar, you can put your hand under your butt cheek there and feel up kind of in the center. That's what we call the sits bone. And then the other side, you can kind of feel them. I like that sense of being grounded, but not everyone does. So kind of see if that fits. And you want your legs kind of hip distance apart again, and bringing the toes back up towards the knees. And bring the hands down beside the hips. And then lengthen up, tucking chin. And then inhale, raising hands up so the palms face each other. Reaching up. And then slowly reaching forward, your nose coming towards your knees. Dropping the hands wherever they land. 'Inviting a softening over the whole body, like a sense of being wrapped in compassion for your own sorrow or suffering. And then expanding that to include others in this class, your friends and family. And then imagine including that to blanket the whole world, like a large, soft blanket of compassion. Three more breaths. And then slowly walking the hands back up the legs, coming back up to seated, inviting the eyes to close. And then releasing and coming onto your back. Perhaps knees come to chest, perhaps rocking a little bit side to side. And then hands on knees. Begin to draw circles on the ceiling with your knees. Slow, widening circles. Hands can come off knees if that feels right for you. And then changing direction. One more circle. And then coming back with feet on the ground, hands down beside hips, chin is tucked. You're going to just begin to raise the lower back off the ground and then bring it down again, moving toward bridge, but also creating that space in the lower back. And as you lift and then drop down again, creating a gentle movement, inhaling, rising up with hips off the ground, exhaling, pressing down, coming right down again. And then maybe you want to stay in the flow, or maybe you want to rise up in a hold. Perhaps if you're in a hold, to stay there, or maybe clasping hands underneath and rolling onto the shoulders. Chin stays tucked. You don't look to the right or the left when you're here. And this would be a good example, Anne, if you wanted to use the block here. Some people prefer that. And then exhale, releasing the hands, releasing the shoulders, and then slowly bringing the spine back down to the ground. And then widening arms so they're straight out. And then raising the right leg and crossing it over as though you're sitting cross-legged. So both thighs are pressed into each other. And then shift the hips a little bit to the right and then drop the knees and the hips to the left. And then adjust the left shoulder so it's flat. And then looking over the right shoulder. One more breath. And then releasing, coming back to center, unwinding the legs and get yourself settled in the center of your mat again. And then crossing the left leg over the right. Pressing the thighs together, arms if they're coming in or out again. Shifting the hips a bit to the left and then dropping the knees to the right. Adjusting the right shoulder blade so it's flat and then looking out the opposite direction. One more breath. And then slowly releasing, coming back to center. And then preparing for your Shavasana. So that might be putting on socks, a pillow under your head, a blanket over your body, getting yourself warm. And Shavasana means reaching the legs out and letting them fall open, and the hands come down by the side, out slightly from the hips with the palms up to the sky. And then as you get yourself settled, kind of wiggle a little bit so you're at your maximum level of comfort. And then join me. We're going to inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth with a big sigh. Inhaling. I'm going to do that again. Inhaling. And once more. And then come into stillness. Feeling the legs soft. Noticing any intensity. Feeling the bum, the hips, the pelvis. And feel the lower back, and the mid back and the upper back settling. And then the belly, all the digestive organs. And then up through to the ribs, feeling the ribs expanding and contracting. Feeling the lungs and the heart beating. Now the lungs are breathing, the heart is beating. The arms heavy. Up through the collarbones and the throat and the neck. Feeling the jawbone soften. Tongue heavy. Teeth slightly apart. And then imagine in your mind's eye coming up through the lips to the nostrils, where you feel the slight coolness of the breath as you breathe in, slight warmth as you breathe out, up through the cheekbones to the eyeballs, heavy in their sockets, across the forehead and the scalp to the ears, and then moving into stillness and silence. And then beginning to wiggle the fingers and the toes, and maybe adding circles with the wrists and the ankles. First one way and then the other. And then turning head from side to side. And then maybe stretching the arms and the legs out. And then rolling onto your side. pausing here for a couple of breaths. And then as you're ready, taking your time, coming up to seated. And as you're ready, bringing hands into Namaste before the heart. And bowing first to your own internal light, to the light that guides you, to the still small voice that whispers your truth. And wrapping yourself in compassion, where kindness meets suffering. And then bowing to your neighbors. Thank you for joining me. And any spiritual or higher power that fits for you. And I have a reading on compassion. We are to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty.